It began on a cool Wednesday night, inside the glossy studio of the Arnold Hour, a new talk show hosted by none other than the former governor of California, action movie legend, and pop culture icon, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Known for his unfiltered humor and larger-than-life presence, the show had quickly become a ratings magnet, blending politics, celebrity, and comedy. That night's guest lineup included 2 comedians, a climate scientist, and a surprise guest, a Hollywood producer with ties to President Trump's administration. But what caught America off guard wasn't any of them. It was the moment Arnold, halfway through a segment called Political Power Couples, Who Wears the Pants?, turned his sights to the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Images flashed across the screen. First, President Trump at a rally, then Karoline Leavitt fiercely defending him at a recent press briefing, and finally, a lesser-known man beside her, Nicholas Riccio, her 58-year-old husband, a stoic figure in a tailored suit. He wasn't a political operative or a media darling. He was a former U.S. Marine turned small business owner with a quiet demeanor and a background far from the glamour of Washington. Arnold leaned in, eyes gleaming mischievously. "Now this is interesting," he said, Austrian accent thick. "Karoline is fiery, sharp, aggressive, and then you look at her husband, and he's like..." He paused for effect. "You know when you order steak and get tofu instead?" The studio erupted in laughter. "I mean, no disrespect," Arnold chuckled. "But come on, this guy's built like a retired librarian, not a man married to a political lioness. Karoline looks like she benches bills in Congress. He looks like he benches birdseed." Another round of howls from the audience. Social media lit up. Clips of the roast went viral within minutes. The next morning, the headlines were brutal. Arnold roasts Leavitt's husband. Tofu man in a steakhouse world. New York Daily News, is Nicholas Riccio too mild for MAGA? Buzzspin, Karoline Leavitt, press secretary by day, husband handler by night? TMZ Politics, the White House press room buzzed with gossip. Journalists whispered about whether Karoline would respond. She didn't. Not yet. But behind the scenes, Karoline was fuming. Not at the media, not even at Arnold, but at the way they dragged her husband into the spotlight without warning or reason. Nicholas Riccio, however, was calm. He sat in their kitchen that morning, stirring his black coffee, watching the clips on an old iPad. The video didn't faze him, but the pain in his wife's eyes did. "They think I'm tofu, huh?" he muttered with a soft grin. Karoline leaned across the table, gripping his hand. "It's not funny, Nick. This isn't just a roast. They're questioning your manhood, your strength, because you're not loud or flashy. Because you don't fit their mold. I've been shot at in Baghdad," he said calmly. "I've faced worse men than Arnold with worse intentions. He wants to entertain a crowd. That's fine. But you don't deserve this," she insisted. He looked at her then, with the same steady eyes that had anchored her through 2 chaotic election cycles, through late-night threats, through political storms. "They want a show? Let's give them one." She blinked. "What does that mean?" Nicholas Riccio stood up and cracked his knuckles. "It means I'm going to the Arnold Hour." It was a rare, clear Friday evening in Los Angeles when the black SUV pulled up to the back entrance of the Arnold Hour studio lot. Out stepped Nicholas Riccio. Polished black boots, a charcoal suit, clean-shaven, and wearing a demeanor that instantly silenced the assistant assigned to greet him. Nicholas didn't carry himself like a celebrity or a politician. There was no entourage, no stylist, no PR handler yapping into a headset. He walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced mortar fire and kept breathing. A Marine, a husband, a man now forced into the spotlight not by ego but by necessity. Inside the studio, Arnold was in high spirits. The ratings had soared since his roast of Mr. Tofu, and executives were thrilled. Social media was ablaze with memes and reaction videos, even prompting celebrities to chime in. One late-night host called Riccio the most roasted man in America not named Hunter. "Tonight," Arnold announced to his producers, "we continue the bit. Let's roll with it. Maybe bring in a fake Riccio for a sketch or something." That's when his producer, a young woman named Kayla, tapped him on the shoulder. Arnold, there's someone here to see you." Arnold turned. "Fan? No, it's Nicholas Riccio." Karoline Leavitt's husband. The room went dead silent. Arnold chuckled. He came all the way out here to defend himself? He wants an autograph or a rematch? No, Kayla said, gulping. He says he wants to talk to you. In private. Says it's important. Arnold, ever the showman, shrugged and adjusted his blazer. Let's give the tofu a chance. They met in Arnold's private green room, the air thick with tension. Nicholas stood near the window, hands in his pockets, back straight, eyes cool. Arnold entered with a half grin and closed the door behind him. Well, Arnold said, folding his arms. Didn't expect you'd actually show. You want to swing back, make your case on air? Maybe flex a little? Nicholas smiled faintly. I didn't come to play your game, Arnold. Arnold tilted his head. So why are you here, then? Nicholas stepped forward, calm but unwavering. You mocked me on national television. Called me tofu. Weak. Implying I'm somehow less of a man because I don't bark or showboat. It's comedy, Arnold said, shrugging. It's satire. Lighten up. Nicholas' tone was razor sharp. You used my name to boost ratings, paint a false image, and try to embarrass my wife. That wasn't comedy. That was cowardice dressed in a joke. Arnold's smile faded. Nicholas continued, stepping closer. I've served this country in the Middle East, built a business from the ground up, raised a family with integrity. I didn't need TV cameras to prove who I am. Arnold's voice dropped. I've been mocked too, Riccio. My accent, my muscles, my past. You take it in stride. That's the game. Nicholas shook his head. You're right. You have been mocked, and you overcame it. So why mock others now? Why belittle a man you don't even know? Just because he doesn't fit your macho image of masculinity. For a moment, Arnold had no answer. Then, Riccio reached into his inner coat pocket and placed something on the table. A campaign pin from Trump's 2024 run, with his signature on the back. I'm not here for revenge, Arnold. I'm here to invite you. Arnold blinked. Invite me? To a conversation. Live. On your show. Not about who's more manly or who's funnier. About what it means to be a real American man today. You mocked me without knowing me. Now let's see if you've got the courage to know the man you mocked. Arnold stared at him. Silent. Contemplative. The old gladiator in him stirred, recognizing the challenge not as a threat, but as an opportunity. All right, Arnold finally said. You want to come on? I'll give you the stage. Let's see what you've got, Mr. Riccio. Nicholas nodded, turned, and walked out. The former Terminator watched him go and muttered to himself, maybe he's not tofu after all. The following Monday night, the buzz surrounding the Arnold Hour reached a fever pitch. Every major media outlet teased the unexpected face-off between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Nicholas Riccio, the man Arnold had mocked just days earlier. The press dubbed it Tofu versus Terminator. Hashtags like #RealMenDebate and #Riccio versus Arnold trended across platforms. Yet inside the Leavitt-Riccio household, there was no celebration, just focus. Karoline sat across from her husband in their modest living room in D.C., prepping him like she would any White House official about to go on record. You don't have to do this, she told him again. You already stood up to him. That green room moment would have gone viral if anyone filmed it. Nicholas shook his head. This isn't just about us anymore. The mockery became a symbol. How many veterans, family men, quiet leaders get ridiculed because they don't fit someone's loud, exaggerated idea of what it means to be strong? Karoline softened. You've always been the strongest man I know. He smiled. Then let's show them what real strength looks like. The studio audience roared as Arnold walked onto the stage that night. Dressed in his signature blazer and tight tee, he threw his arms open to the crowd. Tonight, we do something different, he boomed. Last week, I made a joke. Some thought it was funny. Others didn't. But the man I joked about, he didn't just sit back and take it. He walked into my green room and challenged me. Not with his fists, but with his mind. The crowd hushed. Arnold gestured toward the curtain. Please welcome Nicholas Riccio. The audience applauded respectfully. Nicholas stepped onto the stage without flair or swagger, but his presence was magnetic. The cameras zoomed in, capturing his calm expression, the flecks of gray in his hair, and the military posture that spoke volumes. They shook hands, Arnold with a showman's grip, Riccio with steady firmness. The segment opened light. "So," Arnold said with a grin, "are you here to arm wrestle or prove you're made of more than tofu?" Laughter. Nicholas chuckled politely. "Let's start with a conversation instead." Arnold leaned back, arms crossed. "You've got the floor." Nicholas looked into the camera. "A lot of people saw that roast last week. Some laughed, some didn't. But here's what bothered me. The assumption that if you're not loud or ripped or constantly flexing, then you're weak. That's a dangerous message, especially to young men in this country." The crowd murmured in agreement. "I served as a Marine for 12 years, Riccio continued. "I've watched brothers die protecting this nation. None of them asked how much you bench. They asked if you'd have their back. Strength isn't how loud you talk. It's how you act when no one's watching." Applause. Arnold shifted in his seat. "Karoline is a lioness, yes?" Nicholas said, glancing toward the screen where a photo of his wife at the White House briefing room appeared. "She's bold, brilliant, fierce. I married her because she inspires me, not because I needed to tame her. Real men don't compete with their wives, they support them." Now the audience broke into cheers. Arnold nodded, taking a more serious tone. "I'll admit, when I joked about you, I was trying to be funny. But maybe I reinforced a stereotype. One I've fought myself." He looked out at the crowd. "People thought I was just a bodybuilder with broken English. I spent years trying to prove I had a brain behind the biceps. You reminded me of that." Nicholas extended a hand again. "Then let's stop mocking men for how they look or don't look. Let's start celebrating quiet strength, steady courage, loyal husbands, devoted dads." Arnold shook his hand again. This time it wasn't performative. It was mutual respect. By the end of the segment, something had shifted. What began as a punchline evolved into a powerful national moment. Millions watching at home, veterans, husbands, fathers, and sons, saw in Nicholas Riccio a new kind of role model. Not flashy, not loud, but unshakably strong. As the credits rolled, Arnold whispered off camera, "You just gave the best interview this show has ever had." Nicholas Riccio replied, "Next time, let's talk about veterans' mental health. That's a subject worth the airtime." Arnold nodded. "You've got it." The morning after Nicholas Riccio's appearance on the Arnold Hour, the country lit up. Not with outrage or cynicism for once, but with admiration, unity, and reflection. News networks from both sides of the aisle were scrambling to play highlights. Fox News, Newsmax, even CNN and MSNBC ran the moment Nicholas called for a new definition of masculinity. "Real men don't compete with their wives, they support them." It was a line already being quoted on social media, stitched onto t-shirts, and reposted with hashtags like #RiccioDoctrine and #ModernStrength. In Washington, D.C., Karoline Leavitt walked into the James S. Brady press briefing room that morning to a noticeably more respectful press corps. One journalist even opened with a rare tone of sincerity. "Ms. Leavitt, before we start, just wanted to say your husband gave a remarkable speech last night. We may not always agree politically, but credit where it's due." Karoline smiled, eyes slightly misty. "Thank you. He's always been that man." The rest of the world just finally saw it. Back at the White House, President Donald Trump himself called Nicholas before noon. "Nicholas," Trump boomed through the phone, "I watched the whole thing. Tremendous. You walked into that lion's den and came out like a lion yourself. Total class act. Karoline chose well. This is exactly the kind of leadership this country needs." "Thank you, Mr. President," Nicholas replied humbly. "I'm serious," Trump went on. "We've got a big push coming on the Veterans Reintegration Act next month. I want you involved, maybe testify in front of the committee. You bring a voice that matters." "I'd be honored." Meanwhile, Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't just receiving praise, he was facing something unexpected. Introspection. After years of being a caricature of toughness, that one conversation had brought up something deeper. For the first time in a long time, his inbox was full of messages from young men, fathers, and veterans. One message from a 19-year-old Marine recruit stood out. Sir, thank you for having Nicholas Riccio on. I grew up without a dad. I thought being a man meant yelling louder and hitting harder. But he showed me something different. For the first time, I'm not ashamed of being quiet or thoughtful. I can still be a protector without being a bully. Arnold stared at the message for a long time. Then he called his executive producer. Let's scrap next week's sketch lineup, he said. I want to bring Riccio back. Not for laughs, this time for real change. Elsewhere, liberals and conservatives alike began weighing in, not with venom, but curiosity. On The View, even the co-hosts who had often criticized Karoline Leavitt had to acknowledge the impact. Joy Behar, often the loudest critic of anything Trump-adjacent, admitted, Look, I don't like Karoline's politics. But her husband? He's the kind of man we don't hear from enough. Quiet strength, loyalty, humility. That was impressive. On X, formerly Twitter, a viral thread was posted by a young father of two. My boys saw the Riccio interview. One asked me if real strength means listening. That moment alone made it worth it. Finally, a man in the spotlight who didn't yell, didn't posture, didn't bully, just stood firm, told the truth, and respected his wife. We need more of that. Even progressive outlets that typically ignored stories involving the Trump administration began discussing Nicholas Riccio's role as a counterpoint to toxic masculinity, how his calm demeanor and honorable past provided a model for bipartisan respect. Suddenly, this wasn't about Arnold mocking someone's husband. It had become a cultural flashpoint, a conversation about manhood, dignity, and what strength really means in today's America. Back at home that evening, Nicholas and Karoline sat on their back porch with coffee in hand. The sun was setting over the Washington skyline. Despite the national attention, their conversation remained grounded. You do realize you've somehow become a national icon for quiet men across the country? Karoline teased. Nicholas smirked. I never asked for that. No, but you earned it. He looked at her. They were never laughing at me, Karoline. They were laughing at what they thought I was. And now they've seen the truth. Karoline leaned on his shoulder. And the truth changed everything. 3 weeks later, Arnold Schwarzenegger walked into a packed auditorium at Georgetown University. What was originally booked as a promotional event for his environmental campaign had been restructured, by his own request, into a panel titled The Redefinition of Strength in Modern America. Sitting beside him on stage were two guests, a retired female Navy SEAL commander, and Nicholas Riccio. Nicholas had accepted the invitation with some reluctance, not for lack of conviction, but because he was still adjusting to the strange experience of overnight fame. He had become something of a folk hero, the patriot gentleman, the quiet backbone, the husband who shut the world up. Labels he didn't care for, but he accepted the moment as a chance to uplift others. Karoline sat in the front row, her press secretary badge clipped discreetly to her coat. This wasn't a political event, but the ramifications of it were undeniably American. Arnold took to the podium first, far more subdued than usual. Everyone here knows me for being big, he said, drawing a chuckle. But what I've learned recently is that size means nothing if you can't carry the weight of responsibility, decency, or humility. And that lesson came to me from a man I once mocked, and now deeply respect, Nicholas Riccio. He stepped aside. Nicholas approached the mic, clearing his throat. I'm not a speaker, he began. I'm a husband, a veteran, and a guy who's lived most of his life away from spotlights. But I learned something these last few weeks. People are hungry, not for noise, not for spectacle, but for substance. For examples. For people who live what they say. He looked around the room. We're told to be louder to be heard, but what if we listen more? We're told to dominate conversations, but what if we earned respect by offering it first? I'm not saying you can't be tough. I'm saying toughness and tenderness can and should coexist. The applause didn't come from politeness, it came from realization. It came from young men who no longer felt ashamed to be calm, from women who wanted sons raised by fathers like him, from veterans who felt seen, not for their scars, but for their quiet dignity. President Trump called Karoline and Nicholas into the Oval. You know, he said, folding his hands over the resolute desk, I've known tough guys, Real killers. But very few had what you do, Riccio. Nicholas raised an eyebrow. What's that, Mr. President? Discipline without ego. Backbone without bluster. You're like if General Mattis and Mr. Rogers had a kid. He chuckled. Karoline tried to hold back a grin. But seriously, Trump continued, turning more solemn, we need men like you leading, not just behind the scenes, but visibly. Veterans need your voice. This administration wants to elevate it. Nicholas sat quietly, contemplating. I appreciate it, he finally said. I don't need titles, but I'll help however I can, especially if it means building something that lasts beyond this moment. Trump stood and shook his hand. That's the American spirit. Following the now famous episode, the Arnold Hour launched a recurring segment called American Strength, spotlighting real citizens, from first responders and teachers to single dads and veteran spouses. Nicholas Riccio's name was mentioned in every segment as the man who inspired it. Karoline's role as White House press secretary grew even stronger, not because of her husband's fame, but because the country now saw a deeper layer to her story, one of partnership, principle, and character. While critics still attacked her policies, few dared mock her marriage again. Nicholas went on to testify before Congress, advocating for bipartisan veteran mental health legislation, earning respect across party lines. He didn't become a politician. He didn't need to. He remained a citizen with purpose, and that was enough. Arnold sat once again across from Nicholas on the anniversary of their infamous episode. This time, the tone was not tense, it was nostalgic. Funny how something that started as a joke turned into a movement, Arnold said with a grin. Nicholas nodded. Sometimes a fire starts from a spark you didn't see coming. Arnold leaned forward. You changed my life. You know that? You changed mine, Riccio replied. You gave me the microphone. I just decided to use it right. They shook hands again, this time not as opposites, but as allies. A viral meme later summed up the entire story with just two images. One, Arnold laughing at a photo of Riccio. The second, Arnold sitting beside him, listening. Caption: real strength isn't found in the echo of your own voice. It's found when you stop to hear another's. And just like that, a country so often divided found common ground, not in politics, not in policy, but in the quiet, resolute dignity of one man who walked into a room not to fight, but to stand firm. And when he did, everything changed.